Welcome back to another episode of Breath of the Wild, Tales Untold, episode 4 we are on now. Today we're going to look at Zelda, her last little spurts with Link, and then we're going to dive into Urbosa's backstory and everything with her memory. So make sure you subscribe and let's get into it.
Nothing. Just as I thought. It appears that this structure was designed to be exclusively accessed by the sword's chosen one.
Okay, this is really interesting already. So number one, she is out here very close to Rito Village. It's on the way. It's not entirely close because there is a canyon in between Rito Village and the portion where she is at on this map. But that shrine is very much still there when Link gets there in the events of Breath of the Wild. We see that she pretty much escaped Link at this point. That's the only thing that we can infer from what is about to happen, is that she snuck away from him, which is crazy to think about. Like, how crazy is it that she was able to get away from the guy with the sword who seals the darkness? He is incredible. And so she's just gone, and this is where she is, and she is such a scholar, right? We know that from all these other memories and from the backstory and different excerpts that we've read from her diary and journal. She is such a scholar. She wants to know more about these things. The reason she wants to know more about the technology is because she feels like a failure. She feels even more like a failure because of Link being at her side constantly nagging, constantly being there, at least from her perception, because that's all she sees is him just showing up consistently and not being able to say a single word. She has no idea why, but she considers herself inferior to him in every single way subconsciously, and that's what makes her so upset at him. And we'll see a little bit more about how that comes to a peak here in this memory. But it's so interesting what she says specifically about the shrine. Breath of the Wild's lore makes a lot more sense to me personally than Tears of the Kingdom's does. I am currently replaying through Tears of the Kingdom. I did everything I wanted to in Breath of the Wild. I will probably end up doing a series similar to this with Tears, but I don't know. I just got to get my head around it more, but I understand this so much more now. The Sheikah technology was created specifically to defeat Calamity Ganon, Calamity himself. They did not have any sort of indication of Ganondorf himself. And heck, in Tears, all of that Sheikah technology just disappears. And a lot of people have theorized that, they took down the Calamity and so it just all went to dust. It just all went to ash and disappeared because it was no longer necessary. Well, we know in Tears it was necessary. We needed it to fight Ganon. Can you imagine if we had those divine beasts against Ganondorf? That would have been very helpful. But we know that they had a plan from literally thousands and thousands of years ago to defeat Calamity Ganon. The sword that seals the darkness will go to the chosen hero, the wisdom, the lady who was passed down from generation to generation. Zelda, being reincarnated into that body, is able to access some sort of sealing power to take away Ganondorf forever. There will be assigned champions from each of the different races in Hyrule, and they will be assigned their own divine beasts. The towers will be up and be able to help everyone be able to communicate with each other, to transport each other all across the map. And then you have the shrines. Now, the shrines are really interesting because they're everywhere. In Breath of the Wild specifically, there are 120 of them, including different shrine quests. You have to go up to Cass for some of these specifically, where he'll give you a little riddle and then you'll, boom, just go and figure it out. Or other NPCs throughout Hyrule will say, there's like 3 trees up there, and then you go in one direction, then you'll find it, says the ancient legend. The people know about shrines, but they don't know what they're for. They just have come to just accept them in their society and just say, yeah, this is weird. This isn't exactly something that we know what it's about. If you were to ask any of the NPCs in depth, they would not understand or know anything about it, but they were all designed specifically for the hero. That is what she's saying here, and she is absolutely correct, because all of these can only be accessed by Link. Something that I didn't quite notice in other playthroughs of this game was that Zelda has a Sheikah Slate herself. I would have personally thought that the Sheikah Slate will just always activate every single one of these shrines, but right now, it doesn't have any light in it whatsoever. In Breath of the Wild, you get out of the Great Plateau, and the second that he gets out, he is given the Sheikah Slate. They put that slate right there next to the Shrine of Resurrection, so that way the second he woke up, he would grab it. Zelda tells him to grab it. He has it, and then boom, he walks out. He activates one tower. That's all he had to do, was just walk up to this tower and activate it. And that sets everything else in motion. Somehow, some way, that is a sign to the other towers, some sort of signal to say, rise up. It is time to get to work. Link is able to activate all of those, and then after that, you come down, the old man tells you to go to the shrine, and boom, from then on out, every single shrine has an orange glow to it at the top. You go up to it, you scan it, it goes like orange and blue, then you defeat it and it goes to fully blue, and you can transport yourself between every single one of them. Here, it's not lit at all, and that is fascinating to me because it's clearly meant to be helping the hero. So why is it that the hero, Link himself, is not able to access them right now? These are questions that really do plague me, but we don't know, right? We have no idea why that is. The only thing I could possibly think of is that maybe Link didn't have access to a Sheikah Slate yet, because he did something on that great plateau where he was able to activate the tower. It activates all the other towers, and then boom, he can do all this stuff to train himself. And then we know that, yes, of course, the structure was designed to be exclusively accessed by the Sword's Chosen One. Why? To train him. Every single time that you defeat a shrine, they give you a spirit orb. Those spirit orbs, you get 4 of them. You are able to increase yourself in terms of endurance with stamina, or be able to increase your level of hearts. So no matter what you're doing, every single shrine, you are obviously working towards getting stronger. That is how these were designed, is to help the hero get stronger. It has a little bit of video game logic to it where it's like, go here, get 4, and then get one big thing as a reward. But in the real world here, I think you can kind of interpret it as every single time he goes into it, it's like an exercise, and these exercises are getting him back to peak form. I assume peak form would match exactly where he was right before the calamity ensued and right before he needed to be put into the Shrine of Resurrection. I can't imagine that he was any less strong before he went down and than he is now. He just so happened to have all this help, and the Sheikah technology finally worked for him in Breath of the Wild, and Zelda activated her powers to seal the deal. But yes, there are so many things about this that are very puzzling. This is a very interesting portion here. Why weren't these shrines active beforehand? If Link is only as strong as he is because he goes through all these shrines, why were they not able to be accessed then? And why was it that the Guardians worked then? All the other Sheikah tech worked then. She had a Sheikah Slate herself, Zelda did, and that means it had to have worked to some capacity. We see them in a Champion's Ballad cutscene, take a picture with it, so it was working. They were probably just trying to figure out how to activate everything. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe Purah and Robbie and all the Sheikah scientists were working to figure out how to activate them. And maybe that was the key, right? That was something that they figured out later on. So I could blabber all day about what the science behind it is and everything about this lore, but let's continue on with this memory.
But designs can always be worked around. At least I hope. How do I get inside? I need to activate it somehow.
So she wants to get inside. That's another really interesting thing. If these are designed specifically for the hero, why does she want to get inside? Just because she's curious? Is that just some sort of legend, or is she trying to help Link out? I seriously doubt at this point in the story that she is trying to help Link. Like, I cannot imagine that is in her mind at all. It's like, yeah, let's make the guy who makes me feel horrible about myself and basically is the reason that I am not able to do what I'm supposed to do and is rubbing in my face every single time I see him. Let's make sure I help him more so that way he can fulfill his duty more while I just continue to flounder. Maybe that's what she's trying to do, I don't know, but here we heard that horse in the background. Here comes Link.
I thought I made it clear that I'm not in need of an escort.
So she's already upset, right? We could see the furrowed brow. And one thing that I thought was really interesting was that Link was galloping. Like, he was in a hurry. And the second he gets off the horse, he's not walking. He does a little jog. Like, he is getting to Zelda as fast as possible. This just tells me even more that somehow she escaped him and his gaze. I don't know how that is even possible, but she got away from him with some sort of savvy move. And now he's here because that's his job. He's literally here to protect her and to watch her at all times. But of course, she is starting to get upset. We saw in the very first memory, she was very monotone. She was trying to hide and stuff down all those emotions. We saw in the next couple memories that she was starting to escalate a little bit more by confronting him, especially with the sword that seals the darkness. She was saying like, oh, can you really hear it yet, hero? Starting to mock him passive aggressively. Now we see it's just coming to an even more of a head here, more of a climax in which she is just mad. She's straight up mad, and the emotions are getting to the Princess of Hyrule for the first time.
It seems I'm the only one with a mind of my own. I, the person in question, am fine, regardless of the king's orders.
So this obviously is an interaction between two teenagers. I mean, this is something that a lot of people don't really think about, but I'm pretty sure Zelda is literally 16 years old in this memory, because she talks later about how it's going to be her 17th birthday, and that is when she hopes to activate her sealing power. So that she's 16 years old with all of this burden on her, and Link has that exact same burden, just in a very different way. He's not a part of the royal family, so maybe you could even argue that it's not the same type of burden, but he sure has a burden himself. And I don't know, even just right here where he's just looking at her skull told her, he just looks sad. I feel so bad for him. He's like, I finally get to you. He probably felt horrible for losing her to begin with. He's galloping, he starts jogging up to her, and boom, this is how she reacts. How could you feel? Like, first of all, you feel bad because you lost her. Then you get there, you're like, oh, finally, I'm glad she's okay. And then the second you pull up, she starts yelling at you. What the heck? And we know for a fact they have not talked a lot at all yet. They just have really just been together, and that's it. So he doesn't understand her at all. He doesn't understand any of this yet. I'm sure he can kind of put it together. He must be very, very observant. Quiet people often are, but I just can't see him being happy with himself here.
Return to the castle and tell that to my father, please.
And even before we continue on, it's interesting how she says about King, the king, her father, go back to the castle and tell my king that. That is something that is so interesting because this is obviously a decree from King Rombos Faramis, her father. This is something that he wanted her to have, is that knight by her side at all times for her protection. Maybe even, I can't even imagine, but maybe even to get him to try and just help her figure this out, to put a little bit more pressure on her, which is the last thing she truly needed. But I can imagine that in his heart of hearts, he was like, maybe if I put this really cool dude next to her, she'll feel even more pressure to do what she's supposed to do. And of course, it really does backfire here. But it does kind of really give off vibes of like, ugh, I don't need a babysitter, dad, because she's 16 years old.
And stop following me!
So she gets mad. Like this, that's the peak of her outburst right there. She gets so upset. Stop following me. She is like yelling at this dude. You know those memes when people are like running through a field and they're like 1,000 meters away and someone was recording someone else? And it's like, stop recording me. And they run up on the dude. Oh, this is what that reminds me of. She's like, stop following me. Because he is just trying to do his best. And he finally caught her. And she says all that and expects him to just go back to the castle. No, he's not going to listen to her, obviously. But that's what she wants, right? And she's probably used to people doing what she says. So this is another thing where it's like, dang, he won't listen. He is annoying. I hate everything about him. I can't do what I'm supposed to do. And boom, he keeps following me. Explosion. So things are not good between our main duo right now. Zelda and Link are in quite a conundrum right now. And what does she do? Well, she goes to Urbosa. That is what we can tell from memory to memory. We're doing this in order here. She goes to the closest thing she has to a mother figure. And that is just really, really cool. We're going to see what happens in this next memory number 5. So normally we'll go through this memory a little bit before I start talking about these diary excerpts, but I think so many of these pages are so important to know before we go into it, so that way you can have that information. So I'm just going to read a few of these pages here. This is Urbosa writing in her own diary. My dear friend from afar came to visit Gerudo Town today. It is always a pleasure to see the Queen of Hyrule. She described her reason for coming as urgent. She wished for me to meet her newborn child. Her sweet daughter's name is Zelda. She has her mother's smile. I cannot help but cherish her already. I told her that Zelda is sure to grow up into a dignified and beautiful queen just like her mother. My friend thanked me, but said that looks are fleeting, and instead, she wishes for Zelda to be blessed with true happiness. The way she gazes upon her daughter, her little bird as she calls her, I have never seen such unconditional love. Oh boy, this is already heart-wrenching for both Urbosa, for the queen about what's about to happen to her, and then Zelda. We know that the Queen of Hyrule had an untimely death. We don't understand why. I don't think there's any reasoning given. I think she might have been sick. There might have just been something that happened, but she passes away very early in Zelda's life. Urbosa already says that she cherishes this child, and of course she would, because her best friend has this kid. So of course she's gonna want to love on this kid as much as she can. Man, what the Queen of Hyrule says back to her talking about the happiness thing, Zelda spends like literally her entire conscious life not being happy, being entirely unhappy. Even in the events of Breath of the Wild, we see in all the cutscenes, it's just ridden with failure. She is happy in some spurts, we'll see in later memories, but then the calamity strikes. Everyone she knows and loves dies. The one person that she was able to kind of open up to was Urbosa as a mother figure, but then also Link. Link basically collapses into her own hands, and then she goes and faces Ganondorf alone. And then Ganon swallows her up for over 100 years. She spends literally the entirety of her life unhappy, in bondage, in total slavery to herself and then to Ganon. It's this is just tragic. So here we go, page 2. It's been a long while since we laid my dear friend the Queen to rest. I only now have the will to write again. It was so sudden. I still can't believe she's gone. All of my sweet memories of her keep running through my mind. Even now, I can hardly keep the tears at bay. Young Zelda kept her head high as she said her final goodbye to her mother at the funeral. She carried herself as a true princess, but I can sense the deep grief she is hiding within. I worry for her. I made a voyage to visit Hyrule. After speaking with the king, I saw Zelda for the first time in a year. In truth, it was my concern for her that brought me there. The king allowed me to keep her company as she went to the spring for her training. There, Zelda prayed and prayed in the spring's icy waters until the sun set. I told her many times to stop, but she wouldn't listen. I eventually had to drag her out of the water. Zelda gazed at me for the longest time with heartbreaking vulnerability. Eventually, in a tiny voice, she told me of the pressure and panic she feels at not being able to fulfill her sacred duty. She whispered over and over, "Why can I not do as the royal daughters of the past have done? What is wrong with me?" All I could do was hold her close and listen. I pray that it is enough. Emissaries from Hyrule came to see me today. They informed me that I have been chosen to pilot the divine beast. My people are uneasy about it. They tell me such a dangerous task is not fitting for the chief. I understand their fear. However, I intend to accept this task. Calamity Ganon's resurrection does not only threaten Hyrule, but the whole world. I refuse to sit idly by. Ganon is also closely associated with the Garuda, an association I deeply resent. I believe Zelda will be here soon to receive my official answer. I am excited to see her, as always. I attended the inauguration ceremony alongside the other champions whom I share a fate with. Zelda, Rivali, Mipha, and Link are so young. They are Hyrule's future. Daruk and I hope to help them see that future. However, one thing did trouble me. Zelda was uncharacteristically cold towards Link. I can imagine why. I hear Link has been assigned as Zelda's guardian knight. I hope they find a way to get along. Link requested to meet with me today. He tells me that Zelda exploited our law that restricts men from entering town to slip away from him. I told him of a trick that would allow him entrance, and he was able to get in. By then, however, Zelda was long gone. I promised to let him know if I saw her, so he reluctantly returned home. In a similar, yet distinct way, Link seems to have trouble expressing himself. Perhaps the two of them can help each other. That is, if she ever gives him the chance. So that's more of the backstory. There are 2 more pages that will be much more fitting after we see this cutscene here. It's just very interesting. Urbosa is such a loving mother figure to both Zelda and Link. She sees all these champions even as young. She probably doesn't have as strong of a relationship with Mipha and Rivali, but she does do what she can to look out for all of them. She's very clearly a wise chief who has seen many battles, who has been a part of so many different roundtable discussions, who has that wisdom in her, and she is quite the leader. She knows everything that Zelda experiences, feels. We talked about everything with her looking up in her eyes and just saying, "What is wrong with me? Why can't I do what I'm supposed to do?" Urbosa knows that literally better than anyone at this point. All she could do was hold her, she says, and that was what she hoped was enough. Maybe she could have done a little bit more, but I don't know if it's her place. Maybe she feels like she is not supposed to be her mother, and I don't know what is going on in her head, why she didn't share more, why she didn't try to encourage her more or help her more, but all she does is just be there, and I'm sure Zelda appreciates that in her own way. So Zelda obviously has been a scholar. She is very much into the weeds on all these different things, looking into the Sheikah technology, trying to figure out how to help people that way. She was looking at the shrines, probably trying to help Link, maybe not, trying to figure out what was going on with that. Maybe she was just trying to help Purah and Robbie more than anything. But then we see that she goes to Naboris, which is the divine beast that Urbosa pilots. And then the memory ensues.
Ah, well, you certainly got here fast. I should have expected as much. From the princess's own appointed knight.
Okay, so it's nighttime. Zelda is basically lying on Urbosa just like she was all those years ago, and Link shows up, and it's been a long, exhausting day. Zelda has been essentially studying Naboris, and we see that in a later excerpt. That's why she's there. That's why she's there to begin with. Link comes fast because we read earlier that Urbosa would tell Link exactly where Zelda is every single time she knows. So he shows up and impresses her, which probably isn't an easy feat. So he is really impressive as we continue to find out. He's great. And then they continue with their conversation that is very one-sided.
She was out on a survey all day today. Still as the sands now. So, spill it, boy. Have the two of you been getting along all right? It's okay, I know. Your silence speaks volumes.
That's a really funny line because the man doesn't talk. No, but he does canonically talk, and we even saw from her stuff that she does talk with him, and he figures out how to get in and probably uses that same technique that we use in Breath of the Wild, but it is just really funny to see. She was out in a survey all day, Zelda was, so she wasn't even trying to figure out her own sealing power and all that. She was figuring out Sheikah stuff. She was trying to study and help them out more. I don't think that Urbosa probably struggled with getting to know Naboris and figuring that out, so it's a little bit confusing as to why she was on a survey, but she was tired. She did everything she could. She invested herself even more into non-sealing power stuff. That is something that the King Rome Boss Ramus will get upset about. She is technically slacking off on her sacred duties here, but nonetheless, here she is with Urbosa. Urbosa asked how they're getting along, which she knows is not well. And coming off the last memory, Link probably is like, oh, she just kind of yelled at me actually. And like, I don't want to tell you anything, but she's not happy with me. So then they continue.
She gets frustrated every time she looks up and sees you carrying that sword on your back. It makes her feel like a failure when it comes to her own destiny. Don't worry, it's not like you carry blame in any of this. It's unfortunate. She's put in more than enough time. Ever since she was a young girl, she's gone through rigorous daily routines to show her dedication. She once passed out in the freezing waters trying to access this sealing power. And she has nothing to show for it. That's the motivation driving her research. I'd be doing the same thing.
So we finally get verbal confirmation. I've been reading through the lines and literally reading the lines to you. Here we see for the first time in a memory, we are given confirmation. Zelda does any and all of this simply because she feels like a failure. She doesn't like Link because he does what he's supposed to do, and she can't. She physically cannot, to the point of literal physical exhaustion, pushing her body to the limits. She can't do what she's supposed to do. So that's why she pours herself into her research, even though that is definitely something she's interested in. That is a passion of her. She has very, very strong emotions towards all of this Sheikah technology. She's very interested in it, but it's still all that is rooted in the fact that she can't access her sealing power that she's supposed to. So she's trying to figure out a different way, a better way, and there is no better way. She just knows that at heart, but still, she's like, dang, if I can't do this, I gotta figure something else out. So she's trying, and Urbosa even kind of commends her for it. Like, you know, I'd be doing the same thing. If I was literally working my whole life to the point of exhaustion and I couldn't get something done, I'd be trying to find a different way too.
She really is quite special. You be sure to protect her with your life. It's quite the honor. The night brings a chill. It's probably time we take her in. Or...
Urbosa! What was that? Did you feel that? Wait, what? How did you... What are you doing here? What's so funny?
So she puts a really big burden on him, and he knows that burden is there. She says, dude, protect this girl with your life. And he does, and he will, and we will later in the game itself. This is also a really good way of showing that dynamic between her and Zelda, because a lot of different mothers would be very much loving in this situation, in which they're like, all right, let's carry them to bed now. And Urbosa, she's not her mom. And this is something that we've seen throughout the different diaries. Like, she's doing everything she can to instill that motherness into her, but she's not her mom, and she's not trying to be. She's trying to be Urbosa, and that is enough. That is clearly enough. And Urbosa is charismatic. She's funny as heck. She has all kinds of power, and she's great. And so what does she do? Instead of waking her up silently, she uses her lightning, shows off her powers, and then bada bing, bada boom, Zelda wakes up, and she finds it hilarious. Zelda sees Link after that big fight and is like, what, that guy right there? What is he doing here? She said, that man is not real. So let's finish out Urbosa's diary, and then we'll talk a little bit more about everything in summary. Today I accompanied Zelda as she went to research Naboris. When the sun set, the poor, exhausted girl drifted to sleep. I sent word to Link, who showed up at Naboris faster than I expected. Although it is none of my business, I felt the least I could do to bridge their gap was to share some things about Zelda. The rest is up to him. So that shows even more about her personality in itself. You would often think, if you watch this memory once or even just twice, that Urbosa doesn't show off a lot of her character. You might think that she's a little bit static, and a lot of people could probably make an argument for that, but I would just really contest that this is a very round character because of everything that she does. Now, she is very powerful. We know that. She's the chief of the Gerudo. She is great. She's wise, but all of that was earned. It wasn't something that she just was born with, right? And we see it even here. She's wise and she is using that experience. You don't just gain all this out of nowhere. She has put in the time and effort to do what she needs to do and do it very well. You have to be really, really good at relationships and knowing people to be able to advise Link in the way she did without having to tell him directly. What did she do? She could have easily, and most people probably who are awkward and don't necessarily know how to interact, would have been like, Zelda doesn't like you and it's because of this, and maybe if you did this, this would help. Like, no, she's very subtle. She's very smart in how she is able to communicate this to Link. Link doesn't know anything about Zelda's backstory at this point. They've not talked about this. So Urbosa tells him, no, dude, she's been training forever. Every time she sees that sword on your back, she's reminded of her failure because she can't do what she's supposed to do. And you would know this because you're the one who's been watching her very closely and keeping an eye on her for the past however long it's been, probably a few months. But we just see here that she was writing that in a very subtle way, hoping that Link would catch on and hoping that that would help bridge that gap, as she says. And as we know, it will eventually. It didn't at all at first, and that would not have worked unless the next memory were not going to happen. But we're going to read one more excerpt. I am so happy to say that Zelda smiles much more often lately. It seems she and Link have finally learned to get along. I hope this will have a positive effect on her training. However, I am concerned we may be running out of time. Whenever I hear of monster attacks or other unusual events plaguing the kingdom, my concern grows. All I can do is pray that Zelda, my little bird, has enough time. I do not pray to the goddesses, but to her mother, my dearest friend. How I miss her. So that's a very interesting piece of information there. Obviously, in the next memory, we're going to see how their relationship kind of gets kindled between Zelda and Link. And then here, we get a little bit more backstory on Urbosa and how she feels. Compared to most other people in Hyrule who will probably worship the goddess, she doesn't. She doesn't seem to at all. She's not religious in that way, but she does pray to her friend. I don't know why I find that so interesting, but I really just do. In a world full of people who are doing one thing, she is doing another thing, and she's doing very well in every other area. We also see her call her my little bird here, which is often what the queen would call her. That's just very, very sweet. It shows how much she loves Zelda, how much she truly does cherish her and wants to be there for her however she can, but she's not letting that emotion get in the way for her to do something that would be unadvised. Zelda does not need coddling. Zelda needs a strong backbone at her back. She needs some support and she needs someone to be there, but also be someone to where she can also rest her head. Because the king obviously puts all kinds of pressure on her and is not able to give her any sense of any rest. Urbosa is strong and she doesn't go out of her way to coddle, but what she does do is help her in where she needs it. And if she needs support in terms of being very forward, Urbosa will give it to her. If she needs it in terms of comfort, she will hold her. She will do what she needs to do, but she stays who she is. And that is really fascinating. That is just more complexity, more depth, more amazing stuff about this game and how rich and detailed it is. Breath of the Wild Tales Untold is the series I made to show you off all of these incredible details and just prove how incredible this story actually is. So that is the end of episode 4. We did 2 more memories today, and I am so thankful for you sticking out to the end of the video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Click the notification bell so you know exactly when the next episode comes out, and consider joining my membership program to get early access to some of my videos, a couple cool perks, and to help support me financially. If you liked today's video, click on the left side of your screen to see the previous episode about Daruk and learning more about Zelda and Link and how we got to this point, and click on the right side of your screen to see all of my Zelda videos, including all of the Tales Untold episodes. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I'll see you all in the next video.